So in terms of relations with the EU, just a few statistics. A lot of this has been out there in the press, but it's worth reminding ourselves. Ballpark, just under 50% of everything that the UK imports and exports goes to the EU. The EU is a big deal for us. We do a lot with the EU. Of our trade, roughly 60% of our exports and 75% of our imports are in goods, and the remaining are in services. What that tells you is that both goods and services really matter. Other than the EU, you've got on the slide there what our next most important export partners are, and they're the USA, China, India and Canada. And you've also got which are the most significant sectors in goods that we export. In services, it's financial services and business services. In goods, it's machinery, it's vehicles, it's pharmaceuticals and so on. Okay? So how might relations with the EU change? Well, there's a lot that is unknown. There are some things that are known. The government has announced that we will be leaving the customs union. Why? Because that means, or what is the impact of that? The impact of that is that we can now set up, UK can now set its own tariffs on goods. So currently, if we're importing mobile phones from the US, there will be a tariff, I don't know what it is, let's say it's 5%, hypothetically, it's an import tax of 5%, which is set by the EU. If we are no longer part of the customs union, we are free to set our own tariff on mobile phones. So note, and for complicated reasons which I don't have time to go into, initially what the government is 99.99% certain to do is to levy exactly the same tariffs as currently are the EU tariffs. Okay? There will be no change with regard to imports from rest of the world countries, except that those tariffs may now apply on imports from Germany, France, or Italy and any other EU country. So the UK will leave the EU and will be treated as a third country. So leaving the customs union entails that there will now need to be customs declarations. Every exporter will now have to, if you want to export to the EU, will have to file paperwork which they currently don't need to do. Currently, it's pretty much just as easy to export to Paris as it is to Manchester. That will no longer be the case. Okay? There will have to be customs declarations, there will have to be some form of border checks. That doesn't mean that every single lorry will be necessarily checked, every single shipment, but there will have to be some way of managing that trade which we don't have to do at the moment. There may also be tariffs. If we don't sign a free trade agreement, if we fall off the cliff edge, there may well be, or there will be tariffs on our exports to the EU. For some goods, those tariffs are 0. For others, such as cars, they're around 10%. For others, such as some agricultural products, they may be even much higher, 20 or 30%. On average, tariffs are around 5%. The next thing that people often don't understand is this need for rules of origin. Imagine that we do manage to sign a free trade agreement with the EU. What does that mean? It means that in theory, a good produced in the UK can be exported to France without paying a tariff. It will be duty-free. But you have to prove that the good was produced in the UK. You can't just buy in a good from Korea or America, package it up in a little box, nice little box, and ship it to France and say, oh, this is a British good. No, you're not allowed to do that. You have to prove this is a British good. And for every single product that is exported, there will be a rule which says this is the criterion which you have to satisfy to say that this is a British good. Typically, the most common way this is done is, again, take my mobile phone here. This has got bits from all over the world in it. So is this a British phone or a Chinese phone or an American phone? Typically, what you have to do is to prove that a certain proportion of this was made in the UK. And typical proportions are about 40 or 50%. It varies a bit from industry to industry. That means that if you are an exporting phone to the EU, you need to be able to identify, document where you get your parts from, where they're produced from, and what share of that comes from the UK and not the UK, in order to be able to prove that you can export to the EU duty-free. Okay? That costs firms to generate that paperwork. Estimates of those costs range from about 5 or 10%. Okay? Think of a tariff as being 10%, a rules of origin, paperwork, bureaucracy cost is somewhere between 5 and 10% as well. That's going to impact on all firms.